Evan was walking home late at night after finishing his long shift at the engineering bay. The sky over the colony was dark, broken only by neon signs and tall metal towers. Most people stayed indoors at this hour because the lower sector was dangerous, but Evan had taken this route many times. He liked the silence, and he needed time alone after dealing with machines all day as he walked. He heard a faint sound behind him. At first, he thought it was just one of the many pipes releasing steam, but then he heard it again, a tiny cry. It sounded like a child. Evan stopped and looked around, confused. Children did not play in this area, especially at night. He slowly walked toward the sound, following the echo through the narrow metal alleys. The cry became clearer, mixed with fear and pain. Evan's heart beat faster. Something was wrong. He reached a corner, and suddenly a bright flame burst out in the distance. A loud explosion shook the ground, and pieces of metal crashed down around him. Evan ducked and shielded himself, coughing on the smoke. When he opened his eyes, he saw the source of the cry. A small figure was trapped between burning crates and broken metal. The flames were rising fast, and sparks shot into the air like angry fireflies. He ran closer and froze in shock when he saw the child clearly. It was not human. The child had blue scales, glowing silver eyes, and small horn stubs on its head. Its body shook with fear, and its little claws were stuck under a heavy metal beam. It looked up and whispered, "Help. Please." Evan stared for a moment, trying to understand what he was seeing. This was a dragon child, one of the young from the Dragon Empire clan. Humans and dragons rarely mixed, and the lower sector was known for deadly conflicts between the two. Helping a dragon child could mean trouble. Big trouble. But the child cried again, louder this time. The flames were getting closer. Evan felt heat burning his face. He knew he had only a few seconds to decide. He made his choice. He charged forward, ignoring the heat that scorched his clothes. The metal under his boots was burning, and smoke filled his lungs. But he kept going. He reached the child and grabbed the metal beam with both hands. The beam was hot, and sharp pain shot through his palms. But he pulled with everything he had. The child whimpered and buried its face in its arms. "Hold on," Evan said through clenched teeth. With a final pull, the beam moved just enough for the child to slide free. Evan dropped the beam and grabbed the small alien, lifting it into his arms. The body was surprisingly warm, almost hot. The child wrapped its arms around his neck, trembling. "Thank you, human," it whispered. Evan didn't have time to think about that strange mix of fear and trust in the child's voice. He ran toward the exit of the alley, but another explosion blasted behind him, throwing him forward. He hit the ground hard, still holding the child tightly. Pain shot through his side. Smoke and dust filled the air. Evan forced himself up. The child clung to him and pointed behind him with shaking fingers. "She is coming," the child whispered. Evan turned slowly, but at first he saw nothing. Just smoke, flames, and falling debris. Then he saw a shadow. A large, frightening shadow moving across the firelit walls. Something big was approaching. Something with wings. A loud roar shook the whole alley. The flames bent as if pushed by the force of the sound. Evan took a step back, his breath caught in his throat. The child hit its face against his chest, gripping his shirt. From the smoke, two glowing golden eyes appeared. They were huge and full of fire. A massive form stepped forward, a dragon woman, tall as a doorway, with dark red scales and a long tail that scraped the ground. Her wings were folded behind her, but even folded, they looked powerful. Her claws glowed with heat, and smoke curled from her lips as she breathed. She looked at Evan not with confusion, but with pure fury. Her voice rumbled like thunder. "Human, what have you done?" Evan froze. He had no idea how to answer. He was still coughing from smoke, still holding the child tightly in his arms. The dragon woman looked ready to tear him apart. She was trapped, Evan said quietly. I was only trying to help. The dragon woman took a step forward. The ground shook. Evan wanted to run, but he knew he wouldn't make it far with the child in his arms. The child lifted its head and cried out, "Mother, he saved me." The dragon woman stopped. Her golden eyes widened a little. Her gaze shifted from Evan's face to his burned arms, then to the trembling child still clutching him. For 1 second, the world became silent. Then the dragon woman reached down with one massive clawed hand. Evan closed his eyes, thinking this was the end. But instead of crushing him, she carefully wrapped her arm around both him and her child. "You risked your life for my daughter," she said softly. Evan opened his eyes in shock. Before he could say anything, darkness washed over him. He fainted in her arms. Evan woke slowly, like someone swimming up from a deep lake. His body felt heavy, sore, and strangely warm. At first, he did not know where he was. He tried to open his eyes, but bright golden light made him flinch. When he finally adjusted, he saw a ceiling made of smooth stone plates, glowing with soft heat. The room around him was not like any hospital he knew. It felt more like a cave, a royal one. He tried to sit up, but a sharp pain ran through his arms. He winced and looked down. His forearms were wrapped in dark red cloth with glowing symbols. They felt warm, almost like the cloth was alive. A shadow moved. Evan froze. Someone was standing beside the bed, someone tall, powerful, and watching him very closely. When his eyes cleared, he saw her fully. It was the dragon woman. Her red scales gleamed in the warm light. Her golden eyes burned like small suns. 2 long horns curved elegantly from her head, and her tail rested on the ground like a coiled whip. Her arms were crossed, and her expression was unreadable, neither angry nor calm, just intense. For a long moment, she said nothing. She simply stared at him, her eyes scanning his face, his bandaged arms, his chest rising and falling. Evan swallowed. Where am I?" Her voice was deep, smooth, and filled with controlled strength. In a Dragon Empire safe house. Evan blinked. A safe house. "Why, you nearly died, human," she said. "Twice." He looked down again at his bandaged arms. He remembered the fire, the metal beam, the explosion, the child in his arms. Then he remembered the dragon woman herself, her massive shape in the flames, her furious voice, her claws reaching toward him. Is the child okay? Evan asked quietly. Another shadow appeared near the bed. The small blue-scaled child peeked over the side with wide silver eyes. When they saw Evan awake, they hurried forward and grabbed his uninjured hand. "I am safe," the child said softly. "Because of you." Evan smiled weakly. "I'm glad." The dragon woman watched the exchange silently. Something unreadable passed across her eyes, surprise, maybe confusion. She finally spoke again. "I am Saraxa," she said. "War leader of the Red Scale clan." Evan tried to sit straighter. "Evan, I'm just an engineer." Saraxa tilted her head. Just an engineer does not run into fire for someone who is not even his kind. Evan didn't know how to answer that. He looked at the child instead. Saraxa stepped closer to the bed. Her presence was overwhelming, hot, heavy, ancient. When she spoke again, her voice was lower. "You saved my daughter." Evan blinked. "Daughter?" The small child looked up shyly. "My name is Kira." Evan stared at the child with shock. This was not just any alien kid. This was the daughter of a dragon war leader, someone powerful, someone feared. Syrax's eyes narrowed as she studied him. Humans and dragons have not trusted each other for many generations. No human has saved one of our young in years. Most fear us. Many hate us. Her claws gently touched the bandage on Evan's arm. Yet you risked your life. Why? Evan hesitated. He wanted to give a smart answer. A brave answer. But the truth was simple. She was a child, he said. I couldn't walk away. Syraxa stared at him for a long time. So long, it made him uncomfortable. Her tail flicked once against the stone floor. Her wings shifted slightly, casting huge shadows on the walls. Finally, she leaned forward. Humans do not help dragons, she said softly. Maybe they should, Evan replied. Silence filled the room again. Kira squeezed Evan's hand. Syraxa straightened, her expression still unreadable. The explosion in the alley was no accident. Evan looked up sharply. Someone attacked her. Yes, Syraxa said. Someone with the skill to bypass our sensors. Someone who knew I would not be there in time. Someone who wanted my daughter dead. Evan felt a chill. Do you know who? He asked. Syraxa shook her head. Whoever they are skilled. They moved in shadows. They used human technology, but with dragon purposes. She locked eyes with him. And you, human. You saw them. Evan frowned. I don't remember much, just flames and some shapes. You remember more than you think, Syraxa replied. And I need every detail. Her tone had changed. It was no longer gentle or controlled. It was firm, even commanding. Evan shifted nervously. Are you keeping me here? Until you recover, Syraxa said. And until I know who attacked my daughter? Kayvon's heart skipped. He was in a dragon safe house, with a war leader watching him. And now he was part of something dangerous, something he never wanted. But Kira held his hand tighter. Please don't leave, she whispered. I feel safe when you are here. Syraxa's expression softened for a split second at her daughter's words. But she returned to her serious stance quickly. You are under my protection, Evan, she said. But understand this. My protection does not come without reason. Evan took a deep breath. He could see the worry in Syraxa's eyes behind the fire and strength. He could see the way her claws trembled slightly when she touched her daughter's shoulder. This wasn't just a powerful warrior. She was a mother. I'll help however I can, Evan said quietly. Syraxa stared into his eyes, searching again. Maybe for lies, maybe for weakness. Then, slowly, she nodded. Good, she said. Because our enemies will come for you, too. Evan's chest tightened. And for the first time, he realized saving that child was only the beginning. Evan sat on the edge of the strange stone bed, trying to stay calm as Syraxa paced across the room. Her sharp claws tapped against the glowing floor, and her long tail swept behind her in slow, tense movements. The air felt warm, almost too warm, and Evan could feel the heat rising each time Syraxa grew impatient. Kira sat close to him, her small, blue-scaled hand wrapped around his wrist. She watched her mother carefully, as if waiting to see if she would explode like the flames in the alley. Human, Syraxa said suddenly, turning toward him. You must tell me everything you remember. Evan nodded, even though he wasn't sure his memories were clear. The explosion had knocked him unconscious. The smoke, the fire, the fear, all mixed together. But he took a deep breath and tried. I remember hearing the cry first, he said. Then I saw Kira trapped under the metal. I ran to help. Then someone attacked us. Syraxa stepped closer. Describe them. Evan squeezed his eyes shut, trying to pull the images from the haze in his mind. I saw shapes, he whispered. Not humans. Not dragons. Something else. They were tall and wore dark armor. Their eyes were covered, and they moved fast. Too fast. Syrax's wings tightened slightly. Were they holding weapons? Yes, Evan said. Long rifles, and their armor had glowing lines. Blue, I think. Syrax's eyes flickered. That small detail meant something to her. That technology is not easy to get, she said slowly. Only a few groups in this colony have access to it. Evan looked up. Are you thinking they were dragons? Or humans? Syraxa didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked toward the entrance of the room, where two dragon guards stood like tall statues. Their red scales glowed faintly, and each carried a spear of molten stone. No dragon would use human rifles, Syraxa finally said, but no human would dare wear dragon armor. So, a mix? Evan asked. Then who are they? Syraxa stopped pacing and stared at the floor, her voice low and heavy. Rogue hunters. Evan felt a shiver run down his spine. He had heard of dragon hunters' dangerous groups, who kidnapped young dragons and sold their scales and horns on the black market. But rogue hunters. He knew only rumors. They were the worst kind humans, aliens, even ex-dragons, working together for profit and power. Evan swallowed. Why would they target Kira? Syraxa looked at her daughter with a fierce mix of love and fear. Kira's bloodline is rare, she said quietly. It carries an ancient power that only a few clans still hold. That makes her valuable. Too many, and deadly to the wrong hands. Kira lowered her head, her small horns glowing softly. They wanted me, Mother, she whispered. I felt it. Evan clenched his fists. Then we have to stop them. Syraxa raised her head sharply. We. Her voice was sharp. This fight is not yours, human. Evan didn't back down. They attacked me, too. They saw me. They know I survived. They'll come back. Maybe not for me, but for Kira. Syraxa stared at him, her golden eyes burning with intensity. She did not like hearing the truth from a human, but she could not deny it. Her tail tapped the floor again. You are not a fighter, she said. You are fragile. Evan gave a small laugh. Tell that to the burning alley. A tiny smile flickered on Kira's face. Syraxa did not smile, but the tension around her jaw loosened just a little. You saved my daughter, Syraxa said, and somehow you survived 2 explosions that should have killed you. She narrowed her eyes suspiciously. Humans do not endure that easily. What are you hiding? Evan blinked. Me. I'm not hiding anything. I'm just an engineer. Syraxa leaned closer, her glowing eyes inches from his. No, she whispered. You are not just anything. Evan felt his heart race. The air was thick with heat and suspicion. But before either of them could say more, a loud clang echoed outside the safe house. The guards straightened instantly. Syraxa spun around, wings spreading slightly. What was that? Evan whispered. Syraxa raised a hand to silence him. The sound came again, this time sharper, closer. Metal striking metal. Then a shout. Kira, stay behind Evan. Ordered. Kira quickly moved behind him, her small claws gripping his shirt. Evan felt his pulse speed up. Syraxa stepped toward the door, fire rising in her throat. A guard raced in. My lady, we found something. Syraxa's tone turned deadly. Show me. The guard held out a burnt piece of armor, black with glowing blue lines. Evan's heart jumped. He recognized it immediately. That's from the attack, he said. Syraxa studied it with cold fury. They came close to this safe house. Too close. The guard nodded nervously. We found tracks leading away. But they stopped suddenly. Whoever they are, they know how to hide. Evan stood slowly. That means they're watching us. Saraxa turned sharply toward him. Not us, she said. You? Evan blinked. Emmy. You, Saraxa repeated. You were the only witness. They fear what you might remember. A cold chill spread through Evan's stomach. He didn't want to be hunted. He never asked for this, but Kira stepped forward and grabbed his hand again. You saved me, she said softly. So I will protect you too. Saraxa's eyes softened at her daughter's words, but her voice stayed strong. The rogue hunters will come again, she said. And when they do, you must be ready. Evan felt the weight of her words settle on his shoulders. He had stepped into a fire to save a child. Now, the fire was following him. Evan did not sleep that night. He lay awake in the warm stone room, staring at the glowing ceiling while Kira slept beside him, and Saraxa stood guard like a silent statue near the door. Every few minutes he heard distant footsteps, echoes of dragon guards moving through the hidden tunnels of the safe house. The air smelled of heat and smoke. Even resting, Saraxa's presence filled the entire space. He could not stop thinking about the rogue hunters. They had attacked without fear. They had used advanced weapons. They had moved fast, too fast for normal humans. And now they wanted him. Because he saw them. Because he could identify them, Evan closed his eyes, wishing he had never gone into that alley. But then he looked at Kira's small sleeping form, curled up like a blue-scaled kitten, her tail wrapped around her legs. And he knew he didn't regret anything. Near dawn, Saraxa spoke. Her voice was low, almost gentle. You did not sleep. No, Evan said quietly. Too much on my mind, Saraxa nodded. Fear is normal. I'm not afraid for myself, Evan answered. I'm afraid they'll come for her again. Saraxa's eyes softened for the first time. That fear, she said, makes you stronger than most warriors. Evan didn't know how to respond, so he simply looked down at his bandaged arms. Before they could speak more, a sudden alarm echoed through the safe house. A deep, booming sound like a horn being hit by fire. The entire cave seemed to tremble. Evan jumped. What is that? Saraxa's wings snapped open. An intrusion alert. Kira woke up and immediately crawled toward her mother. Saraxa lifted the child into her arms like she weighed nothing. Her expression turned dark and dangerous. The guards outside shouted. Metal clashed. Something roared. They found us, Saraxa said. Evan's chest tightened. How? You said this place was hidden. It is, Saraxa said. But the hunters are clever. And desperate. The door burst open and a guard rushed inside, panting hard. My lady, they broke through our outer barrier. At least 10 of them. Saraxa set Kira down behind Evan. Her voice was firm but calm. Stay with him, Mother Kira started, but Saraxa touched her forehead gently. I will return, she promised. Stay behind the human. Evan raised his hands quickly. I am not a shield. I don't know how to fight. Saraxa gave him a sharp look. You survived fire and explosions. You have more strength than you believe. Before Evan could argue, Saraxa turned and marched out with her guards. Her tail dragging lines of heat across the floor. Kira grabbed Evan's hand tightly. She's strong, the child whispered. But they are strong too. Evan listened to the chaos outside. Shouts. Crashes, strange humming noises from energy weapons. Loud impacts that shook dust from the ceiling. He needed to do something, anything. Is there another exit? He whispered. Yes, Kira said. Behind the healing chamber. Can you show me? Kira nodded. Evan grabbed her hand and followed her through a narrow side tunnel. The safe house was built like a maze, winding through warm stone and glowing veins of dragon fire. As they moved, Evan heard a loud explosion behind them. A blast of hot wind rushed through the hallway. The hunters were inside. They reached the healing chamber room lit with floating firestones. Kira ran to the back wall and pressed her small hand against a smooth stone. With a soft rumble, a hidden passage slid open. Evan felt a spark of hope until a shadow moved behind them. He spun around. 2 hunters stepped into the chamber. They wore the same dark armor, glowing blue lines across their suits. Their helmets covered their faces entirely. They carried long rifles that buzzed with dangerous energy. One pointed his weapon at Evan. "You," the hunter said, voice cold through the mask. "Come with us." Kira cried out and clung to Evan's leg. "Over my dead body," Evan said, though his voice shook. The hunter stepped closer. "That can be arranged." Before he could fire, a roar tore through the chamber like thunder. Saraxa crashed into the room, her claws glowing white-hot. She grabbed the first hunter and slammed him into the wall so hard the stone cracked. His rifle dropped instantly. The second hunter fired, but the blast bounced off Saraxa's wing scales. Saraxa's eyes burned with pure fury. "You dare enter my domain." She leaped forward with terrifying speed. The second hunter tried to run, but she caught him with her tail, throwing him across the chamber like a doll. He hit the floor and didn't move. Evan stared, stunned. Saraxa was a force of nature, graceful, deadly, unstoppable. She turned to Evan and Kira. "Are you hurt?" "No," Evan said. "Thanks to you." Saraxa moved closer to him, her breathing heavy. "We must leave. Now." Kira ran into her mother's arms. Saraxa lifted her, then motioned at Evan. "Stay close. Do not fall behind." Evan nodded and followed as she led them through the secret passage. Heat pulsed through the tunnel, reminding Evan that they were deep under the colony, surrounded by dragonfire veins. Behind them, more shouts echoed. "The hunters aren't giving up," Evan said. "They will not," Saraxa replied. "They want my daughter. And now they want you." "Why me?" "Because you remember more than you realize," Saraxa said, "and they fear it." They kept moving until they reached another hidden door. Saraxa pushed it open, revealing a narrow escape shaft lit by red crystals. Evan looked back at the tunnel they came from, hearing distant footsteps getting closer. "They're still coming," he whispered. Saraxa placed a large clawed hand on his shoulder. "Then run, human. Because this fight has only begun." Evan took a deep breath, grabbed Kira's hand, and followed Saraxa into the dark escape path. The hunters were behind them. The unknown was ahead, and the real danger was just beginning. The escape tunnel seemed endless. Evan ran behind Saraxa, breathing hard, his legs shaking. Kira held his hand tightly with her small, warm claws. The echoes of chasing footsteps faded behind them, but Evan knew the hunters would not stop. They would return, stronger and more prepared. Finally, the tunnel opened into a hidden chamber filled with red crystals that glowed like fire caught inside glass. The air here was warm and peaceful, almost comforting compared to the chaos they had just escaped. Saraxa lowered Kira to the ground. "We are safe temporarily." Evan collapsed against a stone pillar, gasping for breath. His arms throbbed again, the old burns reopening slightly under the bandages. Saraxa's eyes narrowed as she noticed blood seeping through. "You are hurt again," she said. Evan tried to wave it off. "I'll be fine." "No, you will not," Saraxa replied. "Human bodies are weak. Too weak for what you have endured." Her tone wasn't insulting, it was factual, like she was stating the weather. But Evan still felt a sting of pride. Kira approached and touched his arm with a sad frown. "You saved me again, even when it hurt you." Evan gave her a tired smile. "I'd do it again." Saraxa watched that exchange with an expression Evan could not read, part confusion, part admiration, part something else entirely. Then she took a deep breath. "There is one way to heal you," she said slowly, "but it is forbidden." Evan frowned. "Why forbidden?" "Because the ritual was created for dragons," Saraxa said, "not humans. Our fire magic can mend bones, flesh, and spirit. But on humans, it may burn you from the inside." Evan stared at her. "Then, forget it. I'll live." "No," Saraxa said firmly. "You will not live if you keep bleeding. You helped my daughter. You protected her even when death stood in front of you. You deserve a chance to survive." Her voice was softer now. Almost emotional, Evan shook his head. "Saraxa, I don't want you risking." "You will not speak," Saraxa said. "You will only listen." She stepped closer, towering over him. Her scales glowed brighter as she lifted her hand and pressed it to his chest. Heat immediately spread through his body, hot, but not painful, like warm sunlight after a long winter. "This chamber is old," she said in a low voice. "It is connected to the fire veins of our ancestors. Here, the ritual will be strong." Evan swallowed nervously. "What do I need to do?" "Lie down," she said, "and do not move." Evan lay on the warm stone floor. Kira came and sat beside him, holding his hand. "I will be here," she whispered. Saraxa closed her eyes, inhaling deeply. Flames flickered from the corners of her mouth. Her wings stretched slightly, catching the red crystal glow. She began to chant. The words were not human. They sounded ancient, full of power and history. The crystals responded, brightening until the whole chamber looked like it was underwater with red light. Evan felt heat flow into his chest, his arms, his legs. At first, it was gentle. Then it grew stronger, fiercer. He winced. "Saraxa?" "It's getting hotter. Do not move," Saraxa said. Her hands hovered above his chest now. Fire floated between her palms, golden fire that looked alive. The flames curled around Evan's body, sinking into his skin. It was too much. His heart pounded. His vision blurred. He gasped in pain. I can't." Kira grabbed his hand tighter. "Please stay. Please don't go." Saraxa's chanting grew louder, stronger. Her scales glowed bright gold like molten metal. The fire surrounding Evan began to pulse like a heartbeat. Suddenly, a wave of intense heat rushed through his body. Evan arched off the stone floor, crying out. He felt like he was burning from the inside. His skin felt like it might peel off. His bones felt like they were melting. "Stop!" Evan shouted. "It's too much." But Saraxa didn't stop. She growled low, pushing more fire into him. "You will not die," she roared. "Not after everything you have done. Not in my presence." The fire exploded outward in a ring of light. Evan's vision turned white. He felt his heart stop for a moment, then beat again, harder, stronger, like someone had ignited a furnace inside. The heat faded. The chamber went silent. Evan collapsed back onto the stone floor. Gasping for air, but alive, Kira crawled onto his chest, tears in her eyes. "You made it." Saraxa knelt beside him, her face glowing with sweat and leftover firelight. She studied him carefully, scanning his skin and breath. "You survived," she said softly, disbelief in her voice. No human has ever survived dragonfire healing." Evan blinked at his arms. The burns were gone. The scars had vanished. His skin looked new, stronger, almost glowing. How is this possible?" he whispered. Saraxa shook her head slowly. "Either the fire chose you, or you are stronger than I believed." She stood, her wings folding tight. "Evan," she said, Now you are tied to our flame. You are something different now." Evan pushed himself up, feeling unfamiliar strength in his body. "What does that mean?" he asked quietly. Syraxa stared into his eyes with a serious intensity. "It means the hunters will fear you," she said. "But it also means they will want you even more." Evan felt a chill. The hunters had wanted him for witnessing them. Now, they would hunt him for something much worse. He was no longer just a human engineer. He was something new, and they would come back for him. Evan woke after the healing ritual feeling strangely strong, almost too strong. The warmth inside his body had not faded. It pulsed softly under his skin like a quiet flame waiting to rise again. When he sat up, he didn't feel the pain from before. His arms moved freely. His breathing was steady. Even his vision seemed clearer. Kira sat beside him, hugging her knees. She watched him with big silver eyes, half afraid, half amazed. "You glow a little," she whispered. Evan blinked. "Glow." Syraxa stepped forward from the shadows of the chamber. Her wings folded neatly, and her golden eyes burned brighter than before. "She is right," she said. "Your body holds dragon fire now. Not fully, but enough." Evan wasn't sure if that was good news or a warning. "Is that dangerous?" he asked. "For us?" "No," Syraxa said. "For the hunters." "Very." Before Evan could ask more, Syraxa motioned for him to follow her deeper into the chamber. Kira walked beside him, holding his hand like she was afraid he would disappear. They reached a carved stone door with old symbols shaped like flames and wings. Syraxa placed her claw on the center. The symbols glowed, and the door slid open, revealing a hidden war room inside. The walls were lined with maps, glowing crystal screens, and strange weapons made of molten stone. Dragon guards stood around a large table carved from black rock. They bowed their heads when Syraxa entered. Evan felt out of place, like he had walked into a general's command center. Syraxa walked to the table and pointed at a projection showing the colony. "There," she said, tapping a blinking red point. "This is where the hunters first appeared." Evan stepped closer. "Near the food market." "Yes," Syraxa replied. "They used the busy area as cover. And they planned their route well." She traced her claw across the map. They moved through hidden tunnels. And straight toward Kira. Evan frowned. But how did they know where she was? That alley was random. "No," Syraxa said darkly. "It was not random. Someone led us there. Someone set the explosion to trap her." Kira shivered and moved closer to Evan. Evan felt anger rise in his chest. Who would want to kill a child? Syraxa's jaw tightened. "Someone who wants to destroy my clan." A guard stepped forward. "My lady, we found more evidence." He held out a small device, half metal, half scale, glowing with faint blue light. Syraxa took it carefully. "This," she said, "is a signal tracker." It was hidden under Kira's cloak. Kira gasped. "I did not know." "You are not to blame," Syraxa said gently. "They planted it on you when they ambushed us last week." Evan looked confused. "Last week? You've been attacked before?" Syraxa nodded slowly. 3 times. Smaller attacks. No injuries. But they were testing our defenses. They wanted to know how close they could get. Evan clenched his fists. "And the explosion was their final move." "Yes," Syraxa said. "And you ruined it." Evan blinked. "Sorry." Syraxa leaned closer. "You saved my daughter when they believed no one would dare. You changed their plan. You made them fail." Evan felt uneasy. "So they'll come after me harder now." "Correct," Syraxa said. "You are a witness, a survivor, and now you carry dragon fire inside you. That makes you dangerous. But I don't know how to use anything, Evan said. I'm not a soldier. No, Saraxa agreed. You are not. But you are smart. You think fast. You adapt. You survived fire twice. Few humans could do that. A guard stepped closer. My lady, should we hide him deeper underground? Saraxa shook her head sharply. No. That will only delay the hunters. They will not stop until they get what they want. And what is that? Evan asked. Saraxa turned slowly toward him. Kira, she said. And now? You. Kira grabbed Evan's arm tightly. No, they cannot have him. Saraxa placed a gentle claw on her daughter's head. They will not. Not while I live. Evan took a deep breath. So what is their real plan? Saraxa pressed a crystal on the table. A new projection appeared, one that made Evan's stomach twist. It showed a symbol. A dragon claw holding a broken crown. Evan recognized it instantly. That's the mark of the rebellion, he whispered. The group that wants to overthrow the Dragon Empire. Saraxa nodded. These hunters are not simple criminals. They are working with the rebellion. And if they capture Kira, they will gain the ancient power in her bloodline. Evan stared at Saraxa. And if they take me? You hold dragon fire now, Saraxa said quietly. If they capture you, they will try to use you, study you, twist you. You could become a weapon. Evan felt a cold shock spread through him. I never wanted any of this. I know, Saraxa said softly. But fate does not ask what we want. Kira stepped in front of Evan, her small arms spread like she was shielding him. I will not let them hurt him. Saraxa's eyes softened. Nor will I. Evan looked between them, the fierce mother and the brave child. Something inside him shifted, like the flame in his chest grew brighter. What do we do now? He asked. Saraxa's wings spread slightly, casting long shadows across the war room. We fight, she said, but not blindly. We will strike first. Evan's eyes widened. Strike. Where? Saraxa pointed her claw at a glowing red area on the map. The place the hunters came from, she said. The abandoned shipyard. Their base. A spark of fear mixed with excitement rushed through Evan. You want me to go with you? Saraxa stepped closer until her golden eyes filled his vision. Evan, she said, voice low and steady. You saved my daughter. I trust you now. And I need your human mind. Your skills. Your courage. She paused. And Kira needs you too. The child nodded quickly, clutching Evan's shirt at that moment. Evan realized something. He was no longer a helpless human in a dragon's war. He was part of their family now, and the hunters had made their biggest mistake. They had given him a reason to fight back. The journey to the abandoned shipyard felt heavier than any walk Evan had ever taken. Saraxa walked in front, her massive form glowing with heat. Kira stayed beside Evan, holding his hand tightly. The secret tunnels guiding them were silent, except for the soft hum of red crystals and the echo of their footsteps. Evan's heart beat faster with every step. He remembered the hunters' cold voices, the burning alley, the moment he thought he would die holding Kira in his arms. Now he was about to face them again. But this time he wasn't the same weak human. He carried fire inside him. Saraxa led them to a metal wall. She touched a panel, and a hidden door slid open, revealing the outside world. The abandoned shipyard stood ahead like a graveyard of giant rusted ships, broken machines, hanging cables, and old platforms covered with dust. Evan looked up at the dark sky. Are you sure this is their base? Saraxa nodded. Their scent is here. Their weapons too, and their fear of being found. Kira tugged on Evan's arm. Please be careful. Evan knelt in front of her. I promise. Soraxa watched the moment quietly, her golden eyes softening. Then the sound came. A sharp crack, then another, then many. Figures in dark armor stepped from behind broken ships and metal piles. Dozens. Their helmets glowed with blue lights. Their rifles buzzed. The hunters had been waiting. Evan stepped back instinctively, but Soraxa spread her wings wide, shielding both him and Kira. So, a deep voice echoed. "The mother brings herself to us." A tall hunter stepped forward, his armor heavier than the rest, glowing lines running across it like veins of energy. His helmet had a red stripe, the mark of a commander. Soraxa's tail slammed against the ground. "You will die today." The commander tilted his head. "We only want the girl." And the human, Kay, felt a chill crawl up his spine. "Me? Why?" The commander laughed. "You carry dragonfire now. You are a new weapon. And weapons belong to us." Soraxa roared so loudly the metal around them shook. The hunters raised their rifles instantly and fired. A wave of blue energy shot toward them. Soraxa leaped forward and spread her wings to block the blast. The energy hit her scales and exploded in bright sparks. She landed with a growl, flames bursting from her mouth. "Kira, stay behind me," Evan shouted. But before he could move, a hunter grabbed his shoulder from behind. Evan reacted without thinking. Heat surged in his veins, pure burning fire. His palm glowed bright orange, and when he shoved the hunter away, a burst of flame erupted from his hand. The hunter flew back like a burning ragdoll. Evan stared at his own hand in shock. "I did that." Soraxa didn't look surprised. "Use it. This is your fire now." Evan swallowed, fear and excitement mixing in his chest. More hunters charged toward him, but this time he didn't run. He spread his fingers, feeling the warmth gather in his arm. With a small push, a jet of flame shot out, making the hunters dive for cover. Soraxa roared, charging into the battlefield. Her wings smashed into armored soldiers. Her claws tore through weapons, and her fire lit the night sky. She was unstoppable. Evan fought beside her, not with her strength, but with his speed and his new fire. He dodged attacks, used broken ship parts as shields, and sent flames into enemy armor joints. Every blast he unleashed felt easier, more natural. Kira hid behind a large metal crate, watching with wide, hopeful eyes. But the hunters were many, and they were prepared. The commander raised a heavy weapon larger than the others and glowing with bright blue energy. Soraxa hissed, "Get down." A beam of raw power shot out. Soraxa grabbed Evan and Kira and rolled aside. The ground where they stood exploded in a massive crater. Evan coughed. "That thing could kill you." "It will not get the chance," Soraxa growled. Before she could attack, the commander fired again. The blast hit Soraxa's wing, tearing through her scales. She cried out, falling to one knee. Kira screamed, "Mother!" Evan felt something inside him snap. He stepped in front of Soraxa, fire rising around him like a shield. The commander aimed at him. "You belong to us, human." "No," Evan said, his voice shaking but strong. "I don't belong to anyone." The fire in his chest roared to life. Flames burst from his hands, turning white gold the same color as Soraxa's fire. The commander fired his weapon. Evan fired his flames. The two attacks collided in the air, blue energy against golden fire. The clash exploded in a blinding burst of light that shook the entire shipyard. Hunters were thrown to the ground. Metal plates ripped apart. When the light faded, the commander's weapon was melted and his armor cracked open. Evan stood, breathing heavily, his hands still glowing. Soraxa rose slowly, staring at him with stunned eyes. You? She whispered. You matched a commander's cannon. Evan looked at his hands, terrified and amazed. I don't know how. You learned fast, Saraxa said. The remaining hunters scrambled to escape, dragging their wounded commander. Within moments, they vanished into the dark tunnels below the shipyard. Silence filled the ruined ground. Kira ran to her mother and hugged her tightly. Saraxa wrapped a wing around her child, but her eyes never left Evan. She stepped toward him slowly, her voice soft, almost fragile. You risked your life for my daughter, she said. And again for me. Evan rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. Well, I didn't want to watch you die. Saraxa leaned closer. Her golden eyes reflected the glow of his fire. You are not weak, Evan. You are not ordinary. You are something rare. He swallowed. What does that mean? Saraxa lifted her clawed hand and gently rested it on his shoulder, warm, careful, almost tender. It means, she whispered, you do not walk alone anymore. Kira hugged his leg with a big smile. Stay with us. Evan looked at them, the dragon warrior and her brave little daughter. His heart felt warm, steady, certain. He nodded slowly. I'll stay. Saraxa's eyes softened into something warm and unexpected. Then welcome, she said quietly, to our family. The night around them glowed with fading sparks, but inside that broken shipyard, something new was born, a bond stronger than fire.